Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another video from the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play Tea Garden, designed by Tomáš Holek and published by Albi. To set the game up, place the game board on the table, shuffle all these region bonus tiles face down, and randomly place one of them face up on each of these bonus spaces on the map. Return the unused tokens back to the box. Then shuffle these cup tiles, and for each of these 4 provinces on the map, create a stack of these tiles based on the number of players in the game. So I'm setting up a 3-player game. We will need 6 tiles in each stack and place them on these spaces. The stacks are placed face up and then return the unused tiles back to the box. Then sort these action cards by their level. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, 4 and 5. And from each stack, take the number of cards equal to the number of players plus 2. So in a 3-player game, take 5 cards from each stack. Choose those cards randomly and then shuffle each stack separately and create a big stack of cards with level 5 cards at the bottom and the level 1 cards on top. Then place the deck next to the game board and draw the first 6 cards face up. When drawing the cards, start placing them from left to right. Then take these Caravan cards, shuffle the cards with this dark background and blue ornaments, create the deck and place it face down, and from the deck with this light background and orange ornaments, take the number of cards based on the number of players in the game. Take 7, 10 or 13 cards in a 2, 3 or a 4-player game. Again, choose those cards randomly, then shuffle them and place them on top of the cards with the dark background. Place the deck next to the game board and reveal 3 cards face up. Then take the cards with this symbol, these are Emperor cards. Shuffle them, place the deck next to the game board and reveal 3 cards face up and place them in these spaces. Then each player chooses a color and takes all the components of that color. Take the player board, 7 pagodas, 8 workers, 1 boat, 1 scoring marker and 11 starting cards. They have the fan symbol of your chosen color in the top right corner. Place 6 of your pagodas in these spaces on your player board, then take the last one and place it in the starting space in the starting region, which is this yellow region. All the boats are placed here in the starting space of the river. Scoring markers are placed in the starting space of the scoring track. 1 worker of each player is placed on this starting space of the university track. Another worker of each color is placed in the starting space of the Emperor track, and then each player takes 2 leaf tokens and places them with this green side up in the basket with the number 2. Then shuffle all your starting cards, place the deck next to your player board face down, and draw 4 cards into your hand. Keep these cards hidden from other players. Randomly choose the starting player who will get this starting player token. Place the round marker on the space number 1 of this round track, and with that the setup is complete. In Tea Garden, players will develop their tea gardens and tea plantations from which they will harvest tea leaves. Those tea leaves have different qualities indicated by this number. The higher the number, the better the quality. And these tea leaves can also be fermented and they will be flipped to the brown side, which is a special type of tea. And then these tea leaves of different qualities can be sold to Caravans for various bonuses and victory points. You can also use these leaves to advance on this Emperor track. You will also advance on this university track. And you will also collect these teapots and you will try to connect them with the same color of these connection symbols, for which you score victory points at the end of the game. And if they're not the same color, at least you will get bonuses from those cups. The game is played over 5 rounds, and in each round, players take turns, starting with the first player and continuing clockwise. And on your turn, you will play cards from your hand. On your turn, you can play as many cards as you want, and the numbers in the top left-hand corner determine the total strength of your cards or of your turn. And with that strength, you can take one main action. Then you can take a secondary action if there's any symbol depicted on your topmost card. And then any number of free actions, and you can take these main and secondary and free actions in any order you want. Now, based on the total strength of your cards, you can play one of the 5 main actions. With the first one, you can build new tea gardens. With the second action, you can buy new action cards. With the third action, you can sell tea leaves to the caravans. With the fourth action, you can ferment the tea leaves, so flip them to the other side. And with the fifth action, you can perform additional harvest from your tea gardens. Normally, you perform the harvest at the end of the round, but if you want to do an extra harvest, you can also do it as a main action. Then, if there's any symbol here on the topmost card of your stack, you can also perform the corresponding secondary action. There are 3 types of the secondary actions. With the first one, you can move along the river and collect these bonuses. With the second one, you collect these cup tokens. And with the third one, you move along this university track and again collect bonuses and points for the end of the game. As the free action, you can advance on this emperor track. You can use the bonuses from connected cup tokens. I'll talk about that later. Or you can use this special scroll to repeat the secondary action. Then it's the next player's turn. When the turn comes back to you, you will place cards in the second slot, on your third turn into the third slot, and then if you want to play the fourth turn as well, you have to pay these leaves. So you have to pay 2 standard leaves and 1 fermented leaf. And if you are not able, or if you don't want to play additional turns, you can pass. And once all players pass, the entire round is over. Then during the maintenance phase at the end of the round, players will perform harvest, the tea leaves will ripen, cards will be discarded to the discard pile, and players will draw new cards. The game ends at the end of the 5th round, and then players will score victory points from all the action cards they acquired during the game. The number of victory points are shown here. Then from the Emperor cards, again, the endgame scoring conditions are shown at the bottom of the cards. You will also score victory points based on how far you advance on this river. Again, the victory points are shown here. Then you also score victory points from this university track. Every time you make a full turn with your worker, you place another worker here, which is worth 10 victory points. If you reach the top of this Emperor track, you also score 10 victory points. And finally, you will score victory points for the connections between the cups if they share the same color of that connection. I'll talk about that later in the video. Then the player with the most points is the winner. So let's go to the action phase now. I will explain this phase in more detail. During the action phase, players take turns, starting with the first player and continuing clockwise. And on your turn, you have to play cards in the leftmost available spot on your player board. So on your first turn, you will play cards here, on your second turn over here, and so on. And you can only play the cards from your hand, and you can play them in any way you want. You can play any number of cards, and the total strength of your action, of your main action, will be determined by the sum of these numbers in the top left-hand corner. So in this example, the strength of the action would be 4. In addition, if there is any secondary action symbol depicted on the topmost card, then you can play that secondary action. However, note that only the symbol on the topmost card is relevant. Any symbols which are on the cards which are underneath the topmost card are basically non-existent. They don't count for the rest of the round. Only the topmost symbol. Furthermore, you start the round with 4 cards only. So the more cards you spend on one action, the less cards you will have for the following actions. So after you play the cards, determine the total strength of your action, which is the sum of these numbers in the top left-hand corner. In this example, it's 3. If you have any of these scrolls, you can spend them to increase the strength of your action by 1. So in this example, we would have 4. Now, there are 5 main actions you can choose from, and you can only choose one of those actions. And I will describe all of them now, and we will start with building a tea garden. You have 6 pagodas, tea garden pagodas on your player board, and under each one there is a minimum strength of your action required to build that pagoda. So with the strength of 3, we can only build this one. If we had the strength of 4, for example, we could build one of these two. You don't have to build these pagodas from left to right. You can choose any of them as long as the strength of your action matches the strength of the required pagoda. To build that tea garden, simply take the token and build it in one of these spaces on the map, and it has to be in a region which is adjacent to a region where you already have a pagoda or a tea garden. Region are these areas separated by these brown borders. River also acts as the border. So in this example, yellow player can build in this region, this one, or this region. So let's say I build it here. After building a tea garden in a region, take the bonus from that region. So in this example, I would get 3 tea leaves of a quality 1, which means I can place 3 tea leaves in this basket with the number 1. That's the lowest quality. And keep the bonus token in that region, because every other player who places their pagoda in that region will also gain that bonus. If you place a tea garden on these spaces which provide victory points, score those victory points immediately by moving your scoring marker on the scoring track. There is an option to build a tea garden in a region which is 2 borders away, so to say. So not only in the adjacent territory, but after crossing one border, you can also cross another border and build the tea garden in that region. In order to do that, you have to spend 2 additional strength on your turn. So let's say that, for example, I want to build this pagoda, which requires the strength of 3 of my action, and with the 2 additional strength required to cross 2 borders, I need to play the cards with a total strength of 5. Then I can take the pagoda, I can cross one border and then another one and place my pagoda in that region. Again, taking the bonus immediately and potentially the victory points. Just to clarify, you can only perform one main action on your turn, and with one main action you can only build one pagoda. The second option is to buy a new action card. Similar to tea gardens, the number above each of these action cards indicate the minimum strength of your current action in order to buy that particular card. Let's say it is my second turn and I played these cards, so the total strength of my action is 3. That means I can take one of these 4 action cards. In order to buy the card, you have to pay the cost which is indicated at the bottom of the card. In this case, it's 3 leaves of at least quality 1 and 1 teapot of any color. In this case, it is 3 leaves, standard leaves, with at least quality 2, with the minimal quality 2, which means they must come from the basket with the number 2 or any higher number. And it also requires the teapot of a red color, specifically red in this case. You can use the symbols of those teapots on the topmost cards in your action slots, or instead you can discard any 3 tea leaves or 2 fermented tea leaves in order to obtain that symbol. There is also a third option to use this scroll. If you have that scroll available, you can discard it and use it as a teapot of any color. So let's say I want to buy this card. The strength of my action needs to be at least 3, which it is. I have the strength of 3, and I have to spend 3 tea leaves, any tea leaves, and the quality of those leaves must be at least 1, and then I have to have 1 teapot of any color. The teapot is here, and I can spend any 3 tea leaves. The quality must be at least 1, so this would be 1, 2, and well, I need to spend the higher quality tea leaf. Then take the card and put it into your hand, which means you can use that card on the following turn in the same round. Then slide the cards to the left and refill the empty space with a new card from the draw deck. Then the third option is to sell the tea leaves to the caravans. Each caravan card has two sections and you have to choose one option from both of those sections. In this example, you can either sell one tea leaf and gain a teapot scroll, or 3 tea leaves of any quality and gain a teapot scroll, and you can also remove one card from your deck. Then in the bottom section, if the total strength of your action is at least 2, you gain 3 victory points. If the strength of your action is 3 or more, you get 4 victory points and an Emperor token. That means that in order to sell tea leaves to this caravan card, the strength of your action must be at least 2. So after you play your action cards, let's say like this, the total strength of my action is 3. Now I don't have 3 tea leaves, I only have 2, so I can decide to spend this one, which in return gives me the teapot token. And in addition, since the strength of my action is 3 or more, I get 4 victory points and the Emperor token. Again, place the Emperor token somewhere into your play area. Then take that caravan card, keep that card somewhere in your play area because it may be needed for the endgame scoring, and then replace the card with a new card from the draw deck. Again, with one action, you can only sell to one caravan card. Later in the game, on these advanced cards, there are brown fermented tea leaves depicted. In that case, you must spend a brown fermented tea leaf. If there are green tea leaves, you can spend any tea leaves, even the brown instead of the green one. The brown tea leaves are of a higher quality, so you can spend them instead of the lower quality green ones. When there are no numbers shown next to those tea leaves, you can spend those tea leaves from any basket on your player board. The next action is fermentation. With this action you ferment the tea leaves, so you flip them from the green side to the brown side. The strength of the action determines how many of those tea leaves you can ferment. In this case the strength is 2, so I can flip 2 tea leaves to their brown side. Always keep those leaves in the same basket. And finally, the fifth main action is the extra leaf harvest. With this action, you harvest tea from your tea gardens as an extra harvest in addition to the harvest which takes place during the maintenance phase. The strength of your action determines how many tea gardens you can harvest. So with a strength of 2, I can only harvest maximum 2 of these 3 tea gardens. You can harvest 1 leaf from each tea garden, and the quality of the leaf is determined by the number in the region. So here I can get 1 leaf of the value 5, and here 1 leaf of the value 3. You always harvest fresh leaves and place them in the corresponding baskets. So that's it. Those are all the 5 main actions in the game, and now I will cover these secondary actions. When you play these cards and the topmost card has this secondary action symbol, you can also perform that secondary action. There are 3 secondary actions in the game. This one is called the cup production, this is the river navigation, and this is tea studies. So let's start with this one, cup production. With this action, you can take the top tile from the stack, from the province, where you have at least 1 tea garden. So in this example, the yellow player can take either this tile, because there is a yellow pagoda in this red province, or this one, because yellow has a tea garden in this blue province. Yellow doesn't have any pagodas in the orange or the green areas or green provinces. So take one of those tiles, you can only take one, take it from the top and place it somewhere in your play area. When you get the first tile, nothing happens. Later in the game, let's say when you take another tile, connect it with the previous tile any way you want, but if you connect it in such a way that the color of that connection is the same, so we have here a green connection with a green connection, this will count at the end of the game. The more connections of the same color you have, the more victory points you gain. In addition, place this cup token on top of that connection. Then again, later in the game, when you connect another tile, but the color doesn't match, you still get a cup token, but it's not going to be counted for the endgame scoring. Note that the orientation of these cups must be the same. You are not allowed to flip the tile to achieve the same color connection. When you gain a tile and the colors of those connections don't match the colors of your existing row, you can always start a new row so that later in the game, when you get another tile, you can create the same color of the connection. You can have as many different rows as you want, but once you place a tile in a specific row, in a specific position, it may never be moved. And also, I have placed these rows next to each other, but you can never connect these rows. You must always keep them separate. Then the next secondary action is this, and it's called river navigation. With this action, move your boat to the next space on the river and gain the benefit of that space. In this case, you would gain a tea leaf into the second basket. With one secondary action, you can only move one space forward. The position of your boat at the end of the game determines the number of victory points you score, and if you reach this last space, if you are the first player to reach that space, place your boat into this first space, which scores the highest number of victory points. The second player would place their boat to the second position with the second highest number, and so on. The third type of the secondary action is this tea studies. With this action, take your worker and move it to the next quadrant, the next segment in this area. Choose one of those two spaces and gain the benefits of that space. Let me put these a little bit away for the moment. All players start the game on this starting space, a neutral space, and when you move forward, you always have to move to the next quadrant, then to the next one, and so on. Always choose from one of those two spaces and take the benefit. More players can be in one space, and as you move forward and move from one segment to another, when you cross from this fourth segment back into the first segment, take another worker from your supply, place it into the middle of this university track, because for each such worker you score 10 victory points at the end of the game. Now let me briefly cover the bonuses shown here. We already know this one. Here you get 3 tea leaves into the second basket. The next icon, this one allows you to perform fermentation. You can ferment 2 tea leaves, which means you can take any 2 leaves and flip them from the green side to their brown side. This icon allows you to draw another card from your draw deck and add it to your hand. So this is the way how you can get more cards into your hand so that you can use them during the same round. With this icon you simply get an Emperor token. With this one you can draw a card and then you must discard a card from your hand to the discard pile. And finally with this one you can permanently remove a card from your hand, from your draw deck or from the discard pile. If you remove the card from the draw deck, shuffle the draw deck afterwards and again create a new draw deck. So that's it. Those are all the secondary actions. There's one more tiny rule that I need to mention here. When you have this scroll, you can use that scroll to repeat the same secondary action again. You can even use that token. If you gain that token during the secondary action, you may immediately use it and repeat that secondary action. So that's it. We have covered all the secondary actions, and now let's go to the free actions. As I said earlier, you can play the main action, secondary action and the free actions in any order you want. You can even play the free action before you play the cards. And there are 4 types of free actions. With the first one, you can advance on this Emperor track. in order to advance to the next space, to the next level, you have to spend the tokens indicated in that level. So in this example, 2 Emperor tokens and 1 tea leaf from at least the first basket. So you have to spend those Emperor tokens and let's say this tea leaf. And after advancing to the next level, you gain the benefits indicated on the right side. Then again, in order to move to the next level, you have to spend 2 Emperor tokens and the tea leaf from the second basket or higher, and so on. And looking at these effects, we have covered all of them. With this one, you gain a scroll, which looks like this. This improves your strength by 1. When you reach the top space, you score 10 victory points at the end of the game, and there's one symbol which we have not seen yet. It's this one. This symbol allows you to take an Emperor card. There are always 3 Emperor cards available to choose from. When you choose a card, put it into your hand and immediately replenish the display with a new card from the draw deck. Emperor cards can be used in the same way as other action cards, which means they have their strength. You can also immediately apply the effects on that card, and they also have the endgame condition, which is obviously only relevant at the end of the game. Another type of the free action is to spend this cup token. When you do, put it back to the general reserve and then take the bonus from one of the adjacent cups. So here either take the scroll with a teapot or 2 tea leaves into the first basket. Sometimes, as the bonus effect in the game, you can gain these cup tokens. In that case, take the cup token from the general reserve and place it on any connection anywhere in your play area. Even on the existing cup token, there is no limit to the number of cup tokens in each space. Keep in mind that when you remove the cup token, you take the bonus from adjacent cups. So that's why choose wisely where you place that cup token. As I said, one of the free actions is to repeat the secondary action using this scroll. If you don't have that scroll, you can buy it for any 3 fermented tea leaves. However, you can only repeat the secondary action once per turn. So, when you don't have any additional cards to play, or if you don't want to play any additional cards, you have to pass on your turn. When you pass, you may no longer take turns this round, and when all players pass, the action phase is over. Then move to the maintenance phase, move the first player token to the next player clockwise, move the round marker to the next round, remove this leftmost card from the action cards, slide all other cards 1 space to the left, and then replace the empty space with a new card. Move all the cards you played to your discard pile. Then ripen your tea leaves. All the fermented tea leaves increase their quality by 1, so move them to the basket, which is 1 space to the right. And all the fresh tea leaves reduce the quality, or that their quality is lowered, which means they are moved to the basket to the left. If there are any fermented tea leaves in the 6th basket, they don't move anywhere, they simply stay there, and the same applies to the fresh tea leaves in the 1st basket. Then perform the standard harvest, during which players gain 2 tea leaves from their corresponding tea gardens. So in this example, the yellow player gains 2 tea leaves that go into the basket with number 5, 2 tea leaves that go to the basket with number 3 and with number 2. And these are obviously always the fresh tea leaves. And now draw 4 new cards. If you have any cards remaining in your hand after the previous round, keep that card or keep those cards, which means you can have more than 4 cards in your hand at the start of the next round. And if you have to draw the card and there are no cards in your deck, shuffle your discard pile and create the new draw deck. So that's it. At the end of the 5th round, you don't even have to perform the maintenance phase. The game will be immediately over at the end of the action phase. And in addition to the victory points you gain over the course of the game, gain the victory points from all the action cards you have bought during the game. Then add the victory points from your Emperor cards. And by the way, every time you see these purple victory points, these are endgame victory points. Any victory points with the blue color are scored during the game. Then score the victory points from the river based on the position of your boat. Score the victory points from your tea studies. For each of your workers in this center area, score 10 victory points, and then based on the position of the worker on this outer ring, score additional victory points. No victory points if the worker is in the first quadrant, 2 victory points if he is in the second quadrant, 4 or 6 if he's in the fourth quadrant. So in this example, the yellow player would score 10, 20, 22 victory points. Then, if you reach the last level of the Emperor track, score 10 victory points. And finally, score the victory points for your connections of the same color using the table you can find at the back of the rulebook. Then for each unused Emperor token or a scroll token, score 1 additional victory point, and then the player with the most points is the winner. So that's how you play Tea Garden. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can also support the channel on the Patreon page. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell. My name is Branislav Berec, and I hope to see you next time.